Hi guys, Brynny Little here from Your Land Partner, coming to you today for your instalment of 100 in 100, number 21 today, and we're gradually moving through the appraisal process. And today what I wanted to talk to you about was owner expectation. Now specifically owner expectation and how to manage that during the early stages of your appraisal. We've said in previous videos really that there's no point doing such an amount of work in terms of detail on build costs and GDVs and numbers and getting carried away with what you can build and looking at kind of the profit margins that you might be able to make with a particular project until you've kind of got a good gauge of how realistic the owners and how open the owners are going to be to work with you effectively. Any development project, it does take time, and it's important to be on the same page as the landowners pretty much from the get-go really, because you've got to manage that relationship all the way through. Now obviously if you're dealing with sites that have got planning permission in place and the owners have gone to the effort of doing that, and they're good consents, and it's more of a kind of a simple transaction, then perhaps it doesn't necessarily apply. But however, if we're dealing with something that you are adding value yourself through the planning process, or you can redo the planning and add further value, or generally speaking you need to redo the planning because the scheme that the site's got is incorrect or not suitable for the market, then it's important to show the owners how you've come about finding out your land value. And that's one of the biggest tools in your toolbox when it comes to negotiation and managing expectation with landowners. It's actually not being secretive with your inner workings and your process and your systems that you have within your business. It's actually being open and transparent to show them how you have come up with the numbers that you are about to discuss, for example. So during the appraisal process, we'll do high level numbers quickly and early in the process, and then we'll gauge the owner's expectation and the response, and then we'll move forward accordingly. Now, one of the mistakes that we do see people make when it comes to gauging response and putting those initial kind of feelers out there in terms of ballpark values is they might be dealing with a site, and let's just say it's got a land value range between 500 and 700,000, for example. What they'll do is just go to the owners and go, look, we've done our high level numbers, we've done some calculations at this point. Obviously we need to firm them up a bit further down the line, but to aid in our conversation at the moment, we've done some high level numbers and we've come up with a site value of between 500 and 700,000, and that's it, no more detail apart from that. So then the owner's looking at this, perhaps their expectations are more than likely in excess of £1 million, as most landowners do seem to have an expectation of that kind of level. But what they don't then do is break that down and show how they've come up with the value itself. So one of the first recommendations for anybody putting forward high level offers or even detailed offers to owners is to break down the offer, break down the value to show how you've come to that value. And the reason for that is this. You've got a site value that's worth 500 to 700,000 because there's a range. I think Richard's talked about a range of figures before. We don't know exactly what set figures are going to be, so we create a range of numbers, and it's 5 to 700,000 for the site value. Now we break that down into the logical sections of the numbers. So you've got GDV, first of all, you've then got build costs, you've got professional fees, you've got developer contributions, you've got finance, you've got profit, and then what's left is the site value. Even by just explaining to the owner, even before you've even got to the numbers, if you explain to the owner that this is how you've derived your site value, then at least you're proving yourself a bit more credible, and you're showing that there is a method behind what you're doing effectively. So what we do is we'd write out 5 to 700,000, and we'd then break that down into the GDV. So we start with GDV. We're doing a residual valuation, as you all know. So we start with the GDV, we work backwards, and we show the GDV range of what we've found based on some sold comparables. We show them an overall build cost. We don't break it down in terms of groundworks and first different trades and everything like that. We don't break it down that detailed until we go into a full development appraisal. But we'll show meterage cost for the build. We'll say this is what we think we can build. It's going to be approximately 1,000 square meters or more, whatever it is. Then we'll go build cost per square meter all in to come up with a build cost, and that could be a build cost range as well. We've got professional fees on top of that. It's typically a percentage of the build cost. We can show them that. Contributions, we can highlight the contributions in terms of CIL or affordable housing or whatever it is through section 106 for the local authority. We can explain why these things are in place, how much they are, because they're derived from a third party. So you can show and you can prove that is £40 or £60 a metre, or you've got to provide this amount of affordable housing, or you've got to provide this contribution for public art or education or trees or whatever it may be. We go to then down to finance, and we sort of say, well, based on a purchase price of X plus a build and development budget of Y, this is what our finance costs are going to be. Profit margin, don't be afraid to tell them and show them how much money you're going to make. And you can explain that in order for us to finance this, development finance companies, we've got to see a minimum of 20% return. So you put your 20% in, you show that as a figure as well. And then what's left is the site value. Now, one of the things to do at that point is say to the landowners, out of what you've just seen or read, is there anything in that list that you think is unreasonable or unrealistic from your point of view? And they might come up with none, possibly. I mean, that's rare. But they might come up with one or two of your lines within your high level numbers, and they might say, yeah, the GDV, I think you've got there 2.4, 2.5 million. I think you can get 3 million. And you go, okay, so we take that objection or that comment, we take that and we go, okay, is there anything else? So we're collecting these objections as we go. Yes, I think your finance costs, I think, they're not to 10% or whatever you've got in there for finance. I think that's a bit too high. I think you could get finance for less than that. You go, okay, fair enough, anything else? So you keep asking them, anything else, anything else, anything else. Now, if they don't mention any of the lines, by default, they've kind of said to you that they're okay with that. So if they haven't questioned the build cost or the fees or the contributions, then you can pretty much say, okay, that's fine. So instead of basically coming to an impasse of overall value, you've got an expectation of £1 million versus a realistic site value of say 600,000 or 700,000. So instead of arguing over say 300,000, what we're then starting to discuss and debate is the difference between their GDV and your GDV, or what they think your finance cost should be and what you think the finance cost should be. So so it's not 300,000 that we're actually debating. It's probably a lot less than that. So by doing that, you're taking a sort of a big gap and you're justifying some of the numbers, and then you're discussing some of the others and potentially justifying why your number is that for finance, for example, or why the GDV is this. And you can prove that the GDV is this because you've got some sold comparables that will tell you that. Now, if you break it down like that, you're then just discussing those finer points. We're then gauging their kind of how open they are in terms of how to move forward and how to work collaboratively almost, or together, or be open to looking at it in a slightly different way, or looking at the deal structures in order to deliver what they think is valid for them and what works for them, and obviously what works for you. So you show them the process, you tell them it's a residual valuation that you're going through, and how they respond to that is, it gives you a good steer in terms of the type of deal structure that you might move forward with, for example. So if they don't not question anything in terms of the cost, but they are questioning something on the GDV, then a potential way forward to go is, well, we're here and you're there. So if we structure a deal based on achieving £2.5 million GDV, but you think it's 3 million, then anything over 2.5 million GDV that we achieve, you will get the lion's share on an overage clause, for example. Explain what that is and just say that, you know, we're willing to work with them, but we can't take all the risk based on numbers that we're not comfortable with. And that's how you manage the owner expectation. One of the most important things as well to discuss with them and to get your point across is the difference between theoretical value and deliverable value. So theoretical value could be something where we're looking at a piece of land and in theory, we could build 10 5-bedroom executive homes, and that would give you a massive GDV because they're, you know, really nice, really high value properties on the plot. In comparison to maybe a mixture of 2 and 3 bedroom family homes, maybe a few more of them, it takes you into affordable housing criteria in many areas, and then you've got the effects of that. So you're weighing up what's actually theoretical and deliverable, and you're explaining this to them. So what we don't want to do is come up with a value that's just not achievable. In theory, we might be able to build 10 5-bedroom executive homes, but the market just won't take 10 5-bedroom executive homes. So you explain that it's finding a balancing act between delivering a good land value or as maximum deliverable land value as possible, what works for you in terms of your profit margin as the developer, what is likely to get consent, and also what is in demand in terms of in terms of where we are in the market. So it's about getting your point across from theoretical value to deliverable value, showing them through the residual value process, breaking that down into the sections, then discussing where the discrepancies are and perhaps the disagreements are, and then only concentrating on those small elements rather than just putting a blanket, your site's worth 600 but I know you want 1 million. And that gives you an idea of whether you can move forward or not. And if there's no wiggle room, there's no, you know, they don't seem amiable to working with you, then move on to the next one in your pipeline. If you do feel that it's something that you can work together on, fantastic, put some more work in, move it through to the next level of the appraisal, and then you see where it goes from there. So hopefully you found that useful. It's not an exact science dealing with landowners, you know, dealing with people isn't an exact science. So you really just got to kind of stick to a process and then feed off of what they're giving back to you and see where you can take it. So it's been Brendan Little from your land partner 100 in 100, and we'll see you again for our next instalment. Take care.